Here we go. See that? Do you recognize that there's a difference between the two? There's a difference between Philadelphia County, which our ancestors set up with certain geographical boundaries, and that corporate, nonprofit corporation that calls itself the County of Philadelphia. It is a corporation chartered to conduct business and commerce and trade and all that within the geographical boundary of Philadelphia County. They are two different things. They are two different things. So when you see documents, pay attention, because all documents that you get don't have County of Philadelphia on them. And you know the difference between the two, because if you get documents from the County of Philadelphia, you know that you're receiving correspondence from a corporation. Do you understand? And if you're receiving correspondence from a corporation, the first question you must ask is, do we have a contract? Now, if you receive correspondence from the county, that's common law. You have the responsibility to respond and adhere to that, because guess what? You are a part and parcel of that county. Our ancestors set up these geographical boundaries for us, all right? Now, likewise, with any other county or city, pay attention to this one little word. It's a very dangerous word. I'm going to tell you, and as I tell people in my class, when that word shows up, you're in trouble. The reason is because most of you prior to tonight, you didn't understand that there was a difference in when they use that little word of. But trust me, there's a difference between whether you're dealing with government or corporation. Government or corporation. You have to know the difference. And if you don't know the difference between these things, they're going to have you swinging left and right in the dark and hitting nothing. Okay? I want to explain to you that when you're dealing in contracts, your status in the contract is very important. How do you establish your presence in a contract so that you are protected? Does anybody know how to do that? Because we're confronted with contracts all the time, and when we do not adhere to certain terms and conditions of the contract, which we did not understand from the very beginning, then we're dragged into court to answer for all kinds of claims and allegations on behalf of the corporation, and we don't even understand why we're there. We think, for the most part, the majority of us, and prior to tonight, you get a summons to appear in court. I don't care whether that's a civil action or a criminal action. You on the defensive because you feel that inherently, maybe I have done something that warrants these allegations. Even if you know for a fact that you're innocent. Because the way that corporate system operates, you are not innocent until proven guilty. You are guilty until proven innocent. And the reason is because as some of these state sovereignty people would have you believe, the United States has declared war on the people. We're in a state of martial law. Well, of course you are. If the people have agreed to be corporate wards of a state that's a private nonprofit corporation, and the government operates according to sovereignty, and you agree not to be sovereign, then what have you done? You've abandoned your government. The only thing the government can do is declare war on you. That's why you walk into a military tribunal when you walk into these courtrooms. That's why they have a military flag, which is a USA flag with the gold fringe, that lets you know you're in a military tribunal. And the reason is because you've agreed not to be sovereign. So the only way they can deal with you is in a military fashion. Y'all understand that? Okay. So how to protect yourself when you're dealing in, the first thing, I'm not going to really get into details of explaining to you how to stand on your square and how to be in court and all that. The first thing you must understand is how to exist in contracts. Because if you understand how to exist in contracts, that will significantly reduce your ever having to go to court, to the courtroom. okay, to the courtroom. If you understand how to deal in contracts, because all these corporations do is deal in contracts, and all the these court systems, let me say that, do is deal in contracts. So if you're not familiar with the contracts, and the majority of their contracts are these. Adhesion contracts. Look in the law dictionary and look up the word adhesion, and what you're going to find is that an adhesion contract is a type of contract where there are terms and conditions that are a part of the contract of which you are not aware. And every time you sign a birth certificate, there's the balance of that contract is somewhere. Whenever you sign for a driver's license, the balance of that contract is somewhere. You don't have it, you've never seen it, but it does exist. And this is why they have the authority to issue you a ticket for all these different things and violations, because there's a contract somewhere that you signed and you have not reserved your rights. So if you don't reserve your rights are considered waived upon signing of the contract, which means that you know, understand, and agree that there's an adhesion going on, and you don't care, or you otherwise are not aware. They don't care. They've got you to sign. How do you go back now and correct the fact that you signed all these adhesion contracts everywhere all your life? You've signed them. I know you have, because I have too. And now's the time for you to get back into your proper person so you can correct those contracts and get out of the ones you don't want to have, and the ones you choose to have, you can exist under your own terms and conditions. That's the most important part. That's long before you get to go into court. Because you can go to court all day long, but guess what? Unless you correct the problem, the root of the problem, which is not knowing how to exist in contracts, you'll constantly go to court, and that's a waste of your time. I'm sure you have many more productive things to do than to keep showing up in court, making special appearance in propria persona, sui juris, and stating your status for the record, okay? Now, the first thing you need to do is contact. Contact those entities with whom you have a contract and tell them that in no uncertain terms you want to correct or otherwise change or revise the terms and conditions of your contract. You have the right to do that, and you must. All right? If you're going to have the contracts, exist in those contracts under your own terms and conditions. Just because somebody hands you an application and that application has pretty little boxes and everything on it, if there's categories up there that don't apply to you, don't fill it out. Add a box that applies to you. And then when we take people to the Social Security Administration to get their name corrected on their Social Security card, this is what happens. There's a section on there for race, okay? Okay, that's just some of them. They may have a few more. I don't remember, okay? Do any of those boxes apply to you? Not even the one other. It does not apply to you. So what do you do? You are a Moor. Tell them who you are. If you don't, and you put any other category up there, you have signed it and you have made a contract with them, and they're going to hold you to that contract. And then if you go back and try to change the contract, they'll say, well, they won't tell you in these words. They'll say, well, we can't do that. Well, why can't they do it? It's because you didn't reserve your rights, but guess what? They reserved all of theirs. And they have the right to not change the contract just because you want to. They reserve that right. Now, and the only way you can get out of it is step out of that corporate board status and deal with them in propria persona sui juris, which means in my proper person of my own rights, okay, and go back and correct those contracts. That's the first thing you got to do. The uniform